Welcome to this week's episode of Sojourner, and don't forget to like and subscribe.
Welcome back to the ongoing series, How Spaces Define Masculinity, a Black and Black Biracial Men's Initiative. My name is Carol Jean Matthews-Shifflett, and I am the CEO of the Sojourner Group. I'd like to start by thanking my sponsors, the Utah Jazz, Planned Parenthood Association of Utah, Pacific Island Knowledge to Action Resource, PCAR, the Utah Coalition Against Sexual Assault, UCASA, and Inlighten Productions. Session 2 brings you three new men. Commodore Stone, an Atlanta-based technical consultant for private organizations and government agencies. He's a community activities volunteer and previous youth mentor. His foundation years were developed in urban cities, Washington, D.C., Atlanta, Georgia, Dallas, Texas, and Louisville, Kentucky. And then we have Chief Brian Lorkey. Chief is a retired deputy of the Unified Police Department in Kearns, Utah. He's currently head of the Security of Biofire Diagnostics. His foundation was developed in New York City and Northern California. And lastly, I bring you Pastor Marlon Lynch III, pastor and founder of Kingdom Huddle. He's an actor, was a lead mentor facilitator for Steve Harvey, and is president of the NAAGA FIST Foundation, which stands for the National African American Gun Association. The pastor's foundation was developed in Detroit, Michigan. Welcome, gentlemen. Why do you think that Black masculinity and Black biracial masculinity is a threat to society? Who wants to start? Since you're on the screen, Commodore, would you like to go?
Yeah, I'll start. I'm gonna start and get it over with because I'm gonna get money out. Well, I think the problem is a lot of people feel like it's going to be the breakdown to their ethnicity or their race. From a Black standpoint, I hate to say I understand, I get it, because they'll feel like that. Okay, we don't have enough brothers as it is, and if we leave and take off running and go to other, then how's the black race going to continue? On the white side of life, white folks are going to probably be like, if you end up messing with these Black people, this is what you're going to get. It's always, a toxic situation per se, but this is what you're going to get. And the same with the Korean, Chinese, these other ethnicities. Everybody always looks at the black man as being the threat to everything. And I think a lot of it is from a biblical aspect in the back end of that, Pastor. And the reason why I say that is because, a lot of things, spawn from, Africa. I ain't gonna lie. And we all used to hiding from it and all those things. So we were the center of the earth. So a lot of people want to probably protect their spaces or their ethnicities. And if they feel like that they're being tainted with this 1% or this thing of Black, then it's going to dissipate. So I don't know. All I know is I just wish we could all get along.
Okay, Pastor, you want to answer that? Why do you think that Black masculinity, Black biracial masculinity is a threat to society?
Well, I'm gonna just keep it hood 100. Everybody want to be Black until it's time to be Black, right? Everybody, everybody don't. I mean, everybody love the culture, but they don't like the color.
Right.
It just boiled down to those basic fundamental statements right there. We have a bullseye on our back. I mean, let's just keep it what it is. We have had a bullseye on our back for over 400 years, and it's not going to change, so I just think it's one of those things where people are ignorant, they don't want to learn. It's been rooted, it's generational anger. So they don't want to develop a thought process that all people are created equal. We all come from the image of God. They don't want to know that. And then they try to give you reasons why they don't accept that, or they don't want to admit that they are racist or don't like Black or biracial or however you want to classify it. So again, like Mr. Commodore said, we need to just come up with a space where I just hate that we judge with our eyes and not with our heart. So you look at me and you already got this perception of me not knowing who I am. And it's a shame that I'm a black educated man, but if I put a hoodie on and walk outside, it's a problem. It's a problem to society. And and then when I open up my mouth, then that's a whole nother issue. So it comes a point where, again, I don't think as men, as black men and biracial men, our masculinity, we should never change who we are, because God took time to create us into who we are. But again, I think that we should invite people to the table for instruction and for dialogue. And this is who I am, and this is who I'm proud to be. And if you don't want to invite me in your space because of who I am or the color of my skin, then that's on you. So,
Right.
One last thing, I think in Utah, I think that is a big problem. And I think a lot of us try to dumb down who we are because we scared of being divided from community or being divided from friendships. And it's like, well, listen, man, hey, if you're not who you are in public, then they can't accept you in your private. So they got to accept you in both arenas. So, so that's all I have for that.
I'm gonna say that for femininity too, okay? Because I find that since I've been back in Utah, things have, you got to speak your truth. You got to be who you are. 'Cause if you're not, then they are going to step on you. So,
Yeah.
so Chief Lorky,
Yes.
why do you think that black biracial masculinity is a threat in this society? And you have a bird's eye view.
Yes, I do. I've seen it, from my past professional career, but also just being able to walk around Utah, walk around America. There has always been that fear of Black people, and it's not just the fear of Black masculinity. And when you pose this question, one of the first things I thought of was, if you remember this from a couple years ago, when Serena Williams went after that line judge in that tennis match, and she caught a lot of flack for the same thing that a lot of white male players had done throughout the years, and they were applauded for, she was criticized for. So anytime that you have a person of color, Black person that steps up and asserts power and stands up for themselves. Look at what President Obama had to deal with at 8 years in office. We look at whenever Cory Booker stands up and speaks and gets loud and gets passionate, look at the flack that he gets. There is a fear of that. And like the pastor said, that's nothing new. That's been going on for 400 years. Anytime that Black people have stood up for themselves and spoke up, there has been a critique to that. It's going on right now in our country.
Okay.
But, as far as Black masculinity, about being able to stand up and defend oneself, there is always that fear and always someone or a group ready to bat them back down. And I think that's what you said. You need to stand up and speak your truth. I have always tried to, I felt that even as a biracial person in Utah, as I've come up through the ranks in my law enforcement career, I always thought that I was looked at differently than others. So I needed to work harder than others to get to where I was.
And so why do you think that is? Why do you think that fear, that threat? I mean, what have you all as Black men done in society?
We're invading that circle. We're invading that space that's not naturally ours, and we're taking it.
You're taking it. Okay.
Taking it.
Okay. All right. So do any of you think that your masculinity has changed over the years? I'm thinking we answered that in some of those responses, that you have grown, but what do you think that you do different? And what is it that you would tell to a young man today or say to yourself in regard to masculinity? What have you learned? You can go ahead and continue, Chief.
The first thing I think of is really in raising my son and what I am teaching him as far as masculinity goes. And I really want him to speak his truth as a male, and I've been really careful about some of those aggressive behaviors. Like I've really tried not to use the words man up. I've tried to get him to use, to express his emotion, but do it in a respectful way that's healthy to himself. So I want him to be able to grow up to be a man, but also to be a healthy man, internal and external, the way he treats himself and the way that he treats others.
Okay, so just real quick, what do you think is a healthy man?
Oh boy.
So since you threw it out there, I'm going to go ahead and throw it.
You know, one that's not afraid to show emotion. That's some of the things that I felt that I was taught that was not natural to who we are as human beings. If we need to show emotion, if we need to cry, if we need to, if we're scared of something, it's okay to say we're scared of something. Or if we're yeah, that's a hard one. That's a hard one.
But you just said it though. You just answered.
Yeah.
You know, don't be afraid.
There's those little things that sometimes if we are scared to act a certain way, we hunker it down just because it's not manly.
And that's what healthy masculinity is all about.
Right.
What about you, Mr. Stone, Mr. Commodore? Has your masculinity, your idea of masculinity changed? And if you were to say something to a young boy today, or say something to yourself, what would it be?
All I can say is, oh my God, yes, my masculinity has changed so immensely over time. As the group Boys and Men, as a phrase, so many ways of growing, into manhood. What I used to think as being a man and growing up from the hood and so forth, and I probably, luckily, we didn't have the things around that we have nowadays. I don't think that I would participate in me walking around with my pants hanging down to my kneecaps, butt hanging all out, and I wouldn't have been running around holding my crotch all the time. However, I was a thug enough that I would have been doing a lot of things that I did do a lot of things. And it would take nothing for me to call a woman out of her name, say things that just weren't right. These days and times of now, I would never say anything like that. That those things don't happen anymore. So in the masculinity piece, I know what being a man is really about now. It's being about, a more of a protective, godly nature, as far as to me. Masculinity is not about a fad, or doing something that folks feel like, oh, this is the in thing, or any kind of way. A man ain't supposed to cry and all this. No. Being true, like I said, that first time I cried, I felt so, rejuvenated. No, I've learned a great deal now, as opposed of being a masculine scenario as opposed to being in my younger days, and I had to find out, I guess, over a period of time. I thought I grew up fast. I did grow fast, and I was ahead of the game when it came to dealing with life and society. However, that had nothing to do with masculinity. That was just growing up and dealing with life and society. Okay, so masculine has a whole different perspective to that. That means you know how to treat a woman. That means you know how to open the door when you should. It means you know how to all those things that come along with that. So no, my masculinity has definitely grown and changed. If it hasn't grown anymore, I'm always saying you can always learn something new. But right now, I think I've learned and know the difference for sure of masculinity as opposed to the earlier part of life. And if I had to talk to a young man now, I am so glad. Well, I've always talked to young men and been kind of, because I guess your advice or your education that you pushing back or giving back is always based on what you have that you have in within you at the time. So if I'm able to speak to someone now, it would be a lot more meaningful than when I was younger. Speaking or in the community or in the hood, telling a young man the things that I can imagine what I would have told him back then, as opposed to now to tell him about being a man is. So, and I've had to stand in certain arenas and mentor and talk to young men and children and people and kind of explain and express to them, how to work, navigate through the world and work through things. So now I am so glad to know that, because initially when you brought this topic up, I kind of just scratched my head like, masculine, but I see so much now in depth of it all. the real meaning behind it and perception of it. And like now, it means so much more, especially to be able to mention back to any young person how to be a man, because it is very important for a young man to grow into manhood and accept its principles, because it's just better for everyone.
Okay. Okay. Pastor Lynch,
Yes, it
why?
has.
So you got the question? You got
Oh,
the
no, no, no. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go. I thought you wanted to go ahead. Let me
Has
see.
your idea of masculinity changed over the years? It's the same question. And if so, how? And if you were to speak to a young man or to yourself today, what would you say that you have learned? Or what could you pass on?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And there's a thing between male versus men. And what I
Mm,
mean, and what I mean by that is, when I was a male or a young boy, masculinity, I thought, being a man was sleeping with the most females or having the most money, things that don't matter at all as a man. But that's what I was taught. That was the environment that I was in. That's why it's so important for men not to be absent in their kids' life or be great mentors, because all you know is all you learn, but all you learn is not all there is to know.
mm,
So as I get into my adult years, again, like I said, I'm blessed to be around some men who had taught me and showed me the ropes on things to say and things to do and how to act around women in general and how to act around black men. That black brotherhood love is something special. They call it bromance. You can call it whatever you want, but brotherhood, black brotherhood is something very special. At least to me, it is. So there is a such thing that I like to classify as grown males. I think a lot of young men think just because they reach 18 or 21 that they men, because society will label them as men. But no, you're a grown male. You're not a man yet. There are certain things that you do as a man and not as a grown male. Like take care of your family, take care of your responsibilities, go to work every day, treat women with respect, and that all goes into masculinity. So I think if I was speaking to myself as a young man, I would say, man, get you somebody who's going to give you tough love. Somebody go love you for who you are and speak the truth into you in love, whether you right, whether you wrong, and someone that's going to be there for you, not just be there until you reach a certain point. Someone that you can rely on, someone that you can depend on, and someone who will love you no matter what decisions that you will make in life.
thank you. Thank you. And my final question of the day, gentlemen, is what would you like for listeners to take away from this series? Go ahead, Pastor Lynch.
I would like for them to take just just love, just coming to a place, coming to a webinar, being open-minded about black men, biracial men, and masculinity. Like Mr. Commodore said, I love when he said, "Hey, you know, everyone has a different definition of what a man or masculinity is, and that's okay. However, there are certain things that men in general should all be doing." And it's just that simple. So I think that with this webinar, it gives us perspective from people from all walks of life on how they grew up into their manhood, whether it was good, bad, or indifferent. But I also think that no matter what story your story is who you are, and you should own your story and be proud of your story. We all have made bad decisions in our life. Some things we are proud of, some things we're not proud of. Some things only God knows. But however, every day is a process. A seed doesn't grow overnight, but if you keep planting that seed, it's going to grow up into something beautiful. So I think that this is a platform where seeds are getting planted. Some people are blossoming. Some people are being watered. So I just thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And what about you, Chief Lorky? What would you like for listeners to take away from today?
I would definitely like this conversation to continue and to have these conversations, even if they're not on screen here, But if you see other people and we get involved in things, especially with all these events going on now, it's more important than ever for us to support each other, to have conversations, to raise each other up, to check on each other, to make sure everyone is healthy, whether it's male, female, whatever. But we're all battling different battles right now, and we're all going through different struggles. So we need to definitely take care of one another and make sure that we are all healthy so we can be the best people we can be.
Thank you for that comment, because, as at the beginning I said, we focus I focus a lot on Black women, but again, we cannot have these conversations without learning more and hearing more from Black men. So thank you for that comment. And Commodore, what is it that you would like for listeners to take away today?
I think for me, the main thing I would want for listeners to take away, and I'm hoping that they can probably hold to some of the things shared, because a lot of times, a lot of folks don't know how to, I guess, close the bridges or the gaps in between folks on both sides, okay? And so a lot of times, some people may not know how to relate to someone because they don't know what they've done or what they've gone through and things of that nature. But the panel of us that you have today, we cover a good bit of ground between differences that multiple men are going to go through, that they're going to go through. So hopefully, someone will be able to look at this and be able to have further dialogue in addition, because nothing's good unless it's pushed out and spread out. That's what we all know from a spiritual aspect. It's nothing good if you contain everything in the church. You've got to take that outside of that building. So therefore, the things that we've sit here and discussed today and talked about today, I'm hoping that someone can be talking to somebody somewhere and they can emphasize to somebody and say, well, I heard them today talk about this, some people talk about this police officer or, or this chief that was able to, to navigate through, being a man through situations of blase this, or this pastor, blase, or this guy who grew up in different homes, but so that they'll know that us Black men go through all these different avenues and can reach these different, plateaus. So, we can become all these different things and still have gone through the craziness or the idiosyncrasies of what Black males go through, from that initial, from that, being raised from the pup. Because, yeah, so, so pretty much that's what I'm hoping to be taken away from it. And this dialogue can be in somebody's, somebody else's living room or website or wherever it needs to be, so that they can continue to discuss these things, so they can understand about masculinity and us brothers and what we got to deal with and go through to be what we are, and that we can become and overcome, So that's my thing.
And we will be broadcasting everything on social media at a later date. So yes, it will be in the living rooms, let everybody know. And I also want to let you know that we have put the survey in the chat box. We'd like for everybody to take the survey for this, this platform and send your honest opinions, because we don't want anybody just sugarcoating everything. We want your honest opinions, so you can get the survey from the chat box. And I think it was you who said to me when we were talking, Commodore, that not all Black men are in prison or have been in the prison system. So that's another reason that we need to continue having these conversations, so that people can see Black men from another perspective. This forum is about your stories, not what society has defined you as. What I'd like to do, we're going to have some more of these. We're going to have one, masculinity from the LGBTQ community. We're going to have generations of family. I'm looking at your faces, but you know what? Masculinity is across the board. So join us the next time. Next time is Pioneer Day in Utah, and that's a holiday in Utah, but not across the United States. But we're going to have, we're going to talk about masculinity from LGBTQ communities. So we also would like to have, I want some millennials, but every time we ask the millennials, nah, I don't want to talk about masculinity. So that might say something. So if you have some young men that would like to come on, please send them my way. My email is sojournerwoman@gmail.com. We really would like to hear from some 20-year-olds, some 30-year-olds, some 40-year-olds, younger 40-year-olds. I don't know what it is, but maybe they're not ready to talk about this message.
I'll have to work on that when I get back. I deal with a few of my friends' sons and stuff because, you know, a lot of my friends are always, you know, can you talk to my son? Or, you know, and some want their words to get out, and some, you know, so I'll have to keep that in mind when I get back to Atlanta. I'm in Detroit right now, Pastor Lynch. I'm actually on Woodward Street. So, Shinola Hotel. So yeah. Yeah. So anyway, but yeah, Carol, I'll try to think of some folks, man. I would like to hear millennials' perspectives too, because they probably need to be, some of them might need to be listening to some of us, and we need to close that bridge, as I was saying earlier. You know, that as my work with Ebenezer and working with the Men's Fellowship, and that's one of our things that we're always, you know, trying to bring into our goals, is somehow or another making sure that we bridge that gap between the young and the old. And so the millennials, you know, they're going to be the next set of us somewhere.
The next set of us. I like that. I want to go ahead and thank again the sponsors to make this happen about masculinity: the Utah Jazz, Planned Parenthood Association of Utah, PCAR, which is Pacific Islander Knowledge to Action Resource, and the Utah Coalition Against Sexual Assault, which is UCASA. Thank you, the panelists, for joining us today. It was really engaging. Again, another session of hearing Black men tell their stories from their perspective, and the audience for joining us. Make sure you let people know. They can write me at again, my email is sojournerwoman@gmail.com. You can contribute to this conversation to continue happening by sending me an email, and I can send you the link to Venmo or the link to paypal.com. So just let me know. Thank you all again. This has been wonderful, and we'll be talking.
Stay tuned for the next episode on How Spaces Define Masculinity, a Black and Black biracial men's initiative.